You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Good morning. I'm here with Tom DePrenger, who is in charge of raising money for the University of Iowa. It's called the Center of Advancement.
Center for University of Iowa Advancement.
There, I got it.
Used to be the
That's
UI
a big
Foundation.
word.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Anyway, a fundraiser. So great to have you. So what I usually like to do is start out with, give me some personal info, get into your background, where you come from. I know you're a Nebraska boy, kind of, right? You started in Iowa.
Yes.
And you ended up in Nebraska. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from,
Sure.
what those roots mean to you today. Tell us a little bit about your family, your lovely wife, Joan.
Okay.
Just give us some background on you that people may not know about Tom when they see you on the street.
Well, everybody gives me a hard time about being from Nebraska, although I'm a true Hawkeye now, all through and through. But I was crazily born here. My dad was a Korean War vet, and so he did the GI Bill at Iowa. We lived in this very modest Quonset, which I don't remember. But he graduated in 1959 from Iowa in communications, TV, radio. So he ended up going into that work in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. We moved there when I was just a little kid. He got in with CBS, a local affiliate, did all the producing, directing the TV shows like the evening news, then got in right in the front end of public television. So the University of Nebraska had one of the best starter public television stations in the country. It was a very nice program. He did a lot of documentaries, produced, directed shows. One of my favorite memories was he'd always do the Nebraska State High School basketball tournament. So I used to hang out with him and watch that all the time.
In Lincoln, right?
In Lincoln, yeah. So I grew up in Lincoln.
Right.
Went to school in a little state college like you and I in Nebraska called Kearney State.
Let's go back to high school.
Yeah, sure.
So what high school in Lincoln?
So Lincoln Southeast.
Southeast. Is that Lincoln East now or still Southeast?
So there's Southeast, East, there's Pius, there's Southwest, North, and Lincoln High.
So tell me about
grown.
Sports. I'm sure you're an athlete.
Good question. So I actually did baseball and tennis.
All right.
So I played tennis. We won the state title my senior year. I'm actually in the Hall of Fame.
Really?
I wasn't
See?
the top guy, but our team won.
Great.
I got a letter in the mail like, "You're in the Hall of Fame." Like, what?
How'd you get into tennis?
It just picked it up by myself. Was self-taught and just loved the game. This is during the years of Rod Laver and Stan Smith, Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe. So you kind of got, if you remember, tennis was a bigger deal when we were younger. And so I loved watching it on TV, and I just kind of picked it up and loved it. I still play. I'm now into pickleball more. It's easier than tennis, but I enjoy that. And then I played baseball, played third base for the Southeast team.
Oh, really?
Played a little college tennis at Kearney State, just dabbled. I was just there for a year and made the team crazily, walked on and was one of their top 6 guys. And then after my freshman year, it's like, it was almost more competitive in high school than in college.
Yeah.
It was a state college. So anyway, I did some sports in high school.
Good. Well, go back to tennis and pickleball because I don't know if you've ever in the winter been to Florida or Arizona.
Yes.
You can't get a pickleball court. It's almost like you got to get in a fight. Like I remember in Florida, I was there a couple of years ago, and everybody's out playing. I said, I just want to sign up. Well, that's a week away, and it's like early in the morning till late at night, and they got lights on at night, and everybody's fighting over a pickleball court. It's kind of amazing. What else are you going to do when you get old?
For me,
golf.
Yeah, I do. I love golf. I'm not a good golfer, but I'm probably a bogey golfer for the most part. But it's so much fun to be with friends and family.
Right.
And that one good shot you hit, the one round,
right.
It's addictive. You just want to come back and do it more.
Right. Well, that's
are you a golfer?
Well, I used to play quite a bit, but I haven't played for quite a while. But yeah, I am a golfer.
So picking up on my story, Gary, I went to Kearney State, and then it was interesting. In the summers, that was my break for my job. So I've been a nonprofit for 44 years now, which is crazy. I got involved in a YMCA camping program in the summer as a college kid, and then became the director of the camp for a couple summers. So I had a staff and 50, 60 kids every week. It was wild, but that got my start in my career.
Niobrara River.
Yes.
See?
Boy, you're good. You know the area. You got it.
Yeah.
Great.
So you learn to canoe and do all that out there.
So I ended up moving to Sioux City. I was going to be a YMCA director. It didn't matter where. I graduated on a Friday, interviewed on Monday, got the job Tuesday. I was unemployed for like 4 days.
Wow. In your whole life?
In my whole life.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I ended up there in Sioux City, and it wasn't, I love Sioux City. It wasn't the greatest town in the 80s during the farm crisis, IBP. strikes and all that stuff. You may remember those years. It wasn't great,
Yeah.
but I met my beautiful bride there, Joan,
Right.
and worked at the YMCA for 4 years, did the program work. And that's how I kind of got my start in fundraising, actually, on the other side. So we were a United Way agency. And so we would be the kind of the other side of it. We would tell the story about our organization to the United Way board, and then we would get an annual gift from them.
Tell me how you met Joan.
Well, it's a funny, a little bit of a funny story. So my office was next to the fitness room. And in the early 80s, there weren't a lot of people doing fitness classes, but they had the aerobic dance. You may remember the Jane Fonda. Yeah, the tights and the socks and all that stuff. So she was in there with a couple other ladies. And like, oh, who's that? So I just began conversing with her after the class, and one thing led to another. But the YMCA is responsible for my wedding or my marriage. It was great.
Good for you. Yeah, I do remember Jane Fonda in those videos. So that dates us, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. The 80s.
Well, that's great. So you were in Sioux City, and then tell us more. Here,
so I ended up working there for 4 years, and I knew at some point there wasn't any path forward like to move up. And so I got interested in college work. So back in the day, you and I remember want ads.
Yep.
Morningside College said we wanted an admissions counselor. All right, I'll give it a shot. I beat out about 100 people for a job to become an admissions counselor for a small college. So I had the southern tier of Iowa, which is kind of the toughest area for income and all of that. But I had everything from Council Bluffs over to like Fort Madison. So I'd get in a car on a Monday and just start traveling and going all around, meeting high school guidance counselors, students, ministers. It was a Methodist college, so I'd call on all the Methodist churches. And that's how I got involved in cold calling. That's what it really started me on this career, that I'm not afraid to call anyone, see anyone, go out and do my thing. And I would do multiple presentations every week, either individually at homes or at high schools, college fairs, and just loved it. Loved working with students.
It's interesting because, I've been in sales my whole life, and it's like, how do you learn to just walk up and talk to people? You just do it.
Yes.
And just little by little. It isn't like you're just born into sales or born into raising money. But you got to learn you got to like people, and you got to be able to talk to people. You got to look them in the eye, shake their hand. And it's not that hard. It's a lot of fun. No, look at the people you've met in your life.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine that?
I got some stories for you that I'll tell you later about. I've gotten gifts from strangers just because I was open to meeting them and talking. I'll tell you some stories later about that.
Love to hear them.
So anyway, I ended up leaving the Y, working for Morningside, and I knew if I really wanted to move up into a bigger place like Iowa, I had to get a master's degree. So I worked at a community college for several years, Western Iowa Tech. At the time,
Council Bluffs?
It was Sioux City, and it was a vocational school at the time. So everything from meat cutting to golf maintenance to piano tuning, band instrument repair. They had all these really interesting 1-2 year programs, but it was a good step because I started my master's during that time. I had to truck up to Vermilion, South Dakota. This is before virtual learning. Your colleague talked about his MBA online, but I had to drive to Vermilion once a week for 3 years to get my master's degree, take summers, no vacation this summer, just go to class, and got a master's in counseling.
Vermilion, Oahu Dam.
What's that?
Is it Vermilion?
Oh yeah, Vermilion, South Dakota.
Yeah, isn't there a lake there?
Yes.
Big lake. I remember fishing on it as a kid.
Yes.
We were out in a boat, and it was so rough, I thought we were going to all drown out there. We caught a bunch of walleyes. So.
All right. That's great. Had a great experience there, though, and loved my faculty members. And as luck would have it, I won't tell you the whole story, but I was able to land a job at Iowa after my master's with the admissions office. Kathy Bassett was my first boss at Iowa, wonderful person. And I started just traveling for Iowa, and I had the northern half of Iowa. I've been to every high school in the state.
Really?
Some people have golfed every golf course.
Yeah.
I've been to every high school. I know all the nicknames, met all the different guidance counselors, and had a ball. It was just so much fun.
I'll test you here. I'm from Oskaloosa. What's the mascot?
Jeez. Well, it's funny. I don't have it off the top. I would have had it years ago, but actually, Oski's a home near and dear home to me too. My grandmother lived there for many years.
Oh, really?
She grew up in Lighton, Iowa.
Lighton, yeah, that's great. It's between Oski and Pella.
And Pella, yeah. So I'm very familiar with that part of the state.
It's the Indians, by the way.
Good. Okay, Indians. I'll remember that. Good test. Yeah. But I ended up doing admissions, and then I won't bore you with the details, but I ended up then running the orientation office, and that was my big break at Iowa. So I had 5 staff, 24 college kids running the program for parents and students in the summer. The Chamber of Commerce would do a social, so I got to know all the townspeople through that. I got to meet all the deans and directors of the university. I'd introduced, at the time, Hunter Rawlings to 900 people out in the crowd in the main ballroom of the Union.
So let me ask you about that. Where did you learn how to publicly speak? Tell us about that. What was your journey?
Boy.
Because you've done that, right? A lot?
A ton, yeah. And I learned early.
Because everybody's afraid of it.
Yeah. When I would speak before 900 people at the main ballroom, I got butterflies every time. I always was nervous about it. But I just kind of naturally have an ability, like you, to talk to people and to speak and hopefully do it in a way that's entertaining and interesting. So it was self-taught. I didn't take classes. We all took our rhetoric courses in college, but I just kind of learned it on the go. But the thing you said about not being afraid, that's how I learned it.
Right.
You just have to get up there and do it. And as you do it more and more, it's repetitive. You get better at it.
Right. My first public speaking, I was at the Highlander, and I had to introduce the director of the Hoover Library. And I don't know what I was doing with it. The Highlander was full. I don't know. You remember that?
Right. Yeah, that's hundreds of people.
Right. And I'm like, and I think I got up and I went like maybe 2 sentences. Then I went into this. And I stopped a little bit and I gathered up. But I think that's how you learn. You got to get out and you got to stumble around and you got to face it, adversity, and go.
Yeah, and there are times. Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
No. The other thing, sorry, I'm skipping around here, but I want to go back to your father.
Yeah.
And we can get into some other things later with that. But tell me about being a Korean War veteran. What that taught you from your dad. My dad was a World War II vet.
Okay.
And saw combat. I don't know if your dad did or not, but everybody forgets about Korea. It's kind of the forgotten war.
Yes.
It's a horrible war. I mean, all wars are terrible. But tell me about what you learned from him.
It's
being
interesting.
A veteran.
Interesting you say that. So every time I go to DC, I go to that monument.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting monument. You've seen it.
Yes.
It's different than a lot of the other ones, but I always go there just to remember my dad. My dad died at a young age. He died in his 40s.
Oh, really?
But he had energy, motivation, great public speaker, kind of an outgoing guy, extroverted. I think I learned discipline from him.
Right.
And you got to just he worked long hours. Some of these television shows take a lot of time. He actually filmed the first live birth in the U.S.
Really?
So he had a program called 90 Get Ready, which was about learning, the whole idea of pregnancy. Showed a cesarean and a natural birth on TV. And this is like in the 60s. When he died at an early age, I kept up with it. And I actually contacted the university and got the tape of those films.
That's cool.
And I converted them to videotapes. So I still have them for my kids.
Oh, wow.
And grandkids.
Boy, that's...
But he was a big influence in my life, for sure.
And the discipline part, I remember that. There was something about it. You didn't probably make a lot of excuses around him, did you?
No, yeah, yes, sir. No, you didn't do that. I didn't do quite that, but you followed along.
Right.
You did the thing that he asked you to do.
Yeah,
it's a great role model for me.
Good for you. So now we're at Iowa. What year are we talking about when you really got rolling?
Yeah,
Iowa?
so I came. I don't know when you came. I came in 1988.
Yeah, 75.
Okay, you beat me. But it was really interesting too. This is the only town I wanted to move to in the state. I had no interest in any other university or because a great college town, great university. I was born here. I just had a lot of roots and memory. I didn't have a lot of memories back then, but I just felt this was my place.
Right. And
so I was going to do anything to get the job. And so did admissions, ran orientation for 5 years. And it's a job you can't do your whole life.
No.
It's a kind of, not a burnout job, but it takes a lot of energy and you're around a lot of younger people.
Right.
And I knew in admissions, I wasn't going to get ahead either. And I'm a runner like you. That's how I got into fundraising. So after the 5 years orientation, I ran the honors program for a year, and I'm not an honors student. It wasn't the best fit. It was a good job, but I was like, this isn't really what I want. I kept running by the river, and I saw this building going up. Like, what's this all about? It was now the Levitt Center.
Yeah.
So I networked, and like you, I'm pretty fearless. I just called up a guy and said, hey, I'd love to learn more about your job. Can I take you to coffee? So I met this guy, Carl Bendorf, at the River Room in the Union. And we just started talking. And he and Dave Dirks, who you probably know, he's one of our very best all-time fundraisers. They just took me under their wing. I wasn't even in the organization yet. Like, we think you have potential. And eventually got a job at what was then called the UI Foundation.
Let's take that just a second. For the young people that listen to this, you made a phone call. You just ask, Carl, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your job. And I did the same thing when I was young, trying to develop people that develop real estate, built real estate. I said, hey, would you tell me more about it? Guess what people will do? Absolutely. They'd love to do that when they can fit it in, have a cup of coffee. So if you really want to be somewhere or get somewhere or have goals in life, talk to people. If that's what you want to be, all you got to do is make a phone call. And you did that. And look what happened.
It was amazing what happened. And I haven't looked back. I've been doing fundraising now for 29 years. It's my calling.
Right. It's your passion.
I love what I do.
You're passionate about it. I can tell when we met at the hospital the other day, you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not, when what we did and we saw the labs and what they're doing with cancer at Iowa, how can you not be excited for all the wonderful things they're doing at Iowa? So
it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
So my lucky break again, I had all these breaks. I got into planned giving at the beginning. So Dave and Carl ran the planned and major giving department. It's very general, so you can do any gift you want. It's not like you're pigeonholed in the Children's Hospital or the Cancer Center. And that's great too, but I like being kind of having a variety of things to do. So I worked on all the complicated gifts right off the bat. So if you wanted to do a trust, gift of farmland, gift of tangible assets, you wanted to make a gift. We had a guy that one time gave us grain, like farm commodities for a gift, which was like, okay, great. So you learned a lot about the complicated estate planning kinds of things. And then my career just kind of took off from there.
Great. So you've been doing that for almost 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about, what is the University of Iowa's mission? And I understand you raise like $150 million a year.
Our bogey is about $300 million a year.
It is. Wow.
Like this year, our goal was $330 million, and we're well over $300 million already. We have about a month and a half before the end of the fiscal year, so we're pretty much on target. This will blow your mind, Gary. We transferred more money to the university than the state gave us this past year.
Oh, man.
So we have all these endowments in dollars that we transfer to the university for a variety of programs. We transferred more than the state of Iowa gave us in public support. And this, you've been around long enough. In the old days, it was 70% of your budget was covered by the state. Now it's very small.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. So people need to just keep on giving, right? And you have a tremendous amount of alumni and support. Where does the money go? Give us some ideas of different research.
So the fun thing, let's just say someone here was here in the room with us. What I would try to do, I never ask money on the first visit. I just want to get to know you and learn more about your passions, what you're interested in. Then I kind of go from there. I'm a real relationship builder. That to me is the key to fundraising, developing trusting relationships. But there's so many different things. I'll tell you more about my career in a bit, but I mainly focus on the healthcare side of things these days. So people who are grateful patients who've been treated at the university for whatever the disease, all of them are grateful. My God, you saved my life. You saved my grandchild's life, whatever it might be. But then you have to just see if there's capacity and interest in maybe making a philanthropic gift. So you kind of peel away the onion and figure out what they're interested in. I have so many stories for you. I have one guy who literally wants to cure epilepsy. His wife got epilepsy in her teens. She's now in her 60s and has all sorts of health issues. The brain seizures just did a number on her. She has aphasia now. She's losing her memory at a very young age. But this guy is so dedicated for his wife that he made a $5 million gift to support research in epilepsy, as an example. But if you think about, Gary, all the different diseases, cancer research, ophthalmology for eyesight, otolaryngology. Bruce Gantz was my very first faculty member I worked closely with. He did the very first cochlear implant in the world here in Iowa City.
Can you imagine being able to hear?
Oh my gosh, yeah, to turn it back on. Yeah, he's had many kids that are just young that were totally deaf, and he turned it back on. Real quick story, my first grateful patient gift, a guy in South Carolina was in a motorcycle accident, a young guy, no helmet, crashed, almost died, lost hearing in both ears. His treating physician happened to be a resident of Iowa living in Greensboro, North Carolina. Called Bruce Gantz, said, hey, I got this guy, I want to come in. Flew him in, bilateral cochlear implant, both ears. Now the dad's cool quote was, my son has his life back.
Right.
It was pretty remarkable.
Right.
And he wanted to give back. And so we worked on him. We did a gift for the Odo department. I have like 100 of those stories that are just amazing.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, gosh.
But people, sometimes I think when things like that happen, I think it's important for people to know what's going on at Iowa, what's going on in research, what's going on in cancer or whatever, cochlear implants with otolaryngology. And they don't know. How would they know if you don't tell these stories?
Right. And the
Epilepsy.
a lot of the other interesting thing is a lot of times I'm not even, there's no expectation on a gift. Like, let's just say you call me, hey, Tom, I've got my grandmother. She's suffering from Alzheimer's. Can you help me out? Can you get me an appointment? My job, I'm a connector. That's one of my main jobs is connecting you with the right area. And when I do referrals all the time. I've been around as long as you. And so people call me and say, hey, Tom, can you help me out? My aunt or my mother or my dad, they have a problem. I literally pick up the phone. I've never once been turned down. That's the remarkable thing about Iowa. I will pick up doctors who I don't even know and say, hey, I'm with the UI Foundation and I have someone who needs your help. Can you do a second opinion? Can you fit him in? It's always yes. Mm-hmm. That's one of the great things about our hospital and UI Healthcare. They're going to help no matter what.
Right. People also need to know that are listening that it's a teaching hospital. Tell us more about what that means to the average person in public.
So the really neat thing is not only, I'll give one example, John Callahan, who's a friend, who's an orthopedic doc, you may know him. John Callahan, really good guy, but he was what I call the triple threat. He was a great clinician, a great teacher, and a great researcher. Mm-hmm. So the teaching part of it is we're responsible for training all the up-and-comers. So all these kids out in the country go to med school. And once they're done with med school, they have to do a residency program. And so all of our faculty are responsible for training the next generation, in this case, orthopedics. So John would take a bunch of kids under his, I shouldn't say kids, but residents under his wing, show them the ropes, show them how to do joint replacement surgery as an example. There are dozens of examples, but that's an orthopedic example. Train them for 5 years and then set them out into the world, and then they do their thing. Matt Howard, who's also a good friend, you may know him too, in neurosurgery, he does the same thing. They only take 2 a year. It's harder to get into neurosurgery than the writer's workshop. They have hundreds of people applying for 2 slots. So you only have 2 slots, and you have to train for 7 years. So to answer your question, all these faculty are training these up-and-comers. Every department has the same thing. They have a residency director and help kids out, learn the ropes, and then they send them free. And so that's a gift we give to the world, all these trainees.
Matt's been on a podcast. So
okay.
He had a story he told me once at a party. He came up to me and said, do you remember? He said, I was recently looking to interview a resident, or potential resident. And like you said, there's how many people want, like 2 for hundreds or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And this fellow was from Italy, and he was talking to Matt about orthopedics, or not orthopedic, neurosurgery, right? He was talking about the department, what he could do, and all of a sudden he said something like, well, I understand, Dr. Howard, you play baseball.
Yes.
And Matt's going, how do you know that? He'd listened to the podcast.
Oh, he knew
so the
about
resident was, or not a resident, the medical school
That's funny.
person was trying to get.
So I have a Matt Howard story for you. So one of our best gifts we ever did, there was a grandpa who was in the hospital. His daughter had this very rare thing called a Carey malformation that Arnold Meneses, who's one of our all-time best faculty members, people from around the world, he was the guy. If you had this particular rare disease, the only place you could come is Iowa City. So we fixed this granddaughter. He just kind of on his own knocks on Matt's door and said, hey, you should really do something for this guy. He's really a gem. And Matt goes, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll do something. The next day, he was still in Iowa City. He called him out of the OR and said, have you thought about it? What are you going to do for this guy? Wrote a big check. Like the first check was like $100,000. Then he ended up he's probably up to over $1 million, but he was so grateful as a grandfather. He had to sleep in a lazy boy, uncomfortable. Now it's much better, but back in the day in the hospital, he's in a lazy boy all night because he loves his grandkid. That's an example of why people care about this place so much, because they recognize the excellence of our faculty.
You talked about John Callahan and Matt Howard. And just think how they feel when they go to bed at night, they're training the future docs and leaders in the medical profession or whatever department they're in. And then they know that they're going to send them off in the world and they can take care of how many patients. It's just amazing. And then not only that, and the research that goes on here, plus the day-to-day care.
It's the multiplier effect.
Yeah. It's just, I can't even imagine.
So I got a quick gift story for you. So I worked on the Papa John Biomedical Discovery Building Project, really big deal. John Robillard, who's another good friend, the former dean, he had Governor Culver in for a tour, and on the back of a napkin, he pitched this idea. And Governor Culver bought it. We got I think it was like $80-90 million from the state, which never happens now to start it. But the cool thing about that project is it had consequences we didn't even understand. The Fraternal Order of Eagles made a $25 million gift to the university to start the diabetes center. They didn't want money to go into a building. They wanted money to go into the people. We had the building already built, and so they made this lovely gift. The I&I, which is the Iowa Neuroscience Institute, the Carver Trust made a multi, multi 8-figure gift to support that. That also went into that building. So all these programs, we have a Center for Neurodegeneration, but that gift from the Papa Johns is a multiplier effect because now all this research is happening in that building. So that's one example of how philanthropy can really accelerate research and make discoveries that we aren't even aware of that make a difference for all of us.
You look at the Carver family.
Oh my gosh, what a family. I do a history lesson with our crew on all the different things, and Roy Carver, the patriarch, made $1 million gift to name the Carver Hawkeye Arena way back in the day. And his interest was wrestling. It wasn't basketball.
Right.
He loved Dan Gable. And then from that start, I think they're well over $100 million now,
wow.
Total support for the university. They're just a great trust.
Did you know Roy?
No, I never did.
You never
know
met
him?
Roy? Oh, I met him, but I didn't know him.
Uh-huh.
Just knew
a
him.
lot of stories about Roy, but I never met the guy. I came too late.
Yeah, that's too bad because his name's all over. So so you have a lot of different, any other stories on people giving back to the U?
Well, one I'm very proud of, which is a recent gift. There's a couple in Arizona. He's a grad of Iowa Medical School and did residency out on the West Coast. This is very interesting. He had an endowment, but he didn't think it was doing enough, like it was spinning off so much for medical student scholarships. But he said, Tom, I want to do something that's more meaningful. Like, well, let's talk about it. He had an endowment. He ended up like changing it to make it just an outright gift, and he pledged additional dollars. He's funding 27 full tuition scholarships for Iowa kids to go to med school over the next 10 years.
That's incredible.
So if you get it, it's for 4 years. So this year we had 3. Next year we'll have another 3, and we'll end up having 12 at one time. But he wanted the very best kids to stay in the state. Most of our very best medical students get bought out by Hopkins or Harvard or some of these East Coast schools. Nothing wrong with that, but we want to keep them in our state. And so he's committed. It's a $5 million plus gift to support student aid for students that are interested in medical education. What a cool story! So that I have a bunch of those, but that's just one that comes to mind. That
that's a great
makes you feel good that you had a small part in connecting that person to our leadership and making a gift that is so impactful.
Tell us about cancer research in West Lawn, and I understand they're doing some lab space.
It's interesting. So Denise Jameson, who I get to work with, our dean of the medical school, wonderful person. She came in and right away Mercy went under. Right. So we acquired Mercy. That was one of her first big things that she had to do. But the big thing she felt she needed to accomplish, our cancer center director was retiring. He recruited a gentleman you just met, Mark Burkhart from Madison. And the focus for the university, all the way up to Barb Wilson, one of our top priorities is cancer research and cancer care. So we acquired a company out of Des Moines called Mission Cancer Blood, and they have a private clinical cancer practice. So that was one piece. So now we're not only caring for people in Eastern Iowa, now in Central and Western Iowa. Huge practice that we acquired. Second, Mark Burkhart, who's our cancer director, needs more research space. It's like it's kind of like a airline on all the seats, trying to fill each seat. Where do you put them? We have no space left for research. I mean, we have a little, but we need more space for research. So we're going to knock down West Lawn, the old nursing building everybody probably knows about, and build a beautiful new research space. That's coming up in the next, say, 2 or 3 years. We're going to break ground and get it started. But it's so needed because we need the space to recruit the very best cancer docs. So that's going on.
Is that 130,000 feet or so?
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, we have maybe 20, 30,000 square feet now, but this will triple, quadruple the amount of research space for cancer physicians.
3 acres under roof.
And one thing I think you learned about, which not many people know, for whatever reason, we're the second highest rate of cancer in the country.
That's
the
just
state of Iowa, which I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but each part of the state has different types of cancer they're known for.
Yes. So we have a wonderful public health college and researchers over there. They've kind of mapped out what parts of the state have a prevalence of a certain cancer. I don't know how they did that, but it's a really interesting project. But it is a big problem in our state. Of course, we're an ag state, so you'll see a lot of sun exposure, but it's more than just that.
Right. And then nationally, aren't we ranked in the top 5 to 10 or in cancer research?
We're highly ranked in cancer research. Children's Hospital is a very big deal. That was one of my favorite projects, working on the STED building.
Yeah, right.
Who knew that it would turn into this amazing destination project for people come to Hawkeye football games who have no interest in the Hawks. They just want to be there for the wave as a thing.
What's better than that in college sports?
I get choked up about every time when I wave over to those poor kids.
You think about what they're going through, especially with children and people that have kids. That's the last thing you want is one of your kids sick.
Oh, yeah.
And they're sick, and everybody, coaches, players, everybody turns and
referees,
does 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It is emotional. It is for anybody.
That was another Jean Robillard vision. Before he left, he was a pediatrician. He wanted a new children's hospital. And so I got to work on that one. And there are tons of people. It's not just me. There are lots of people that got involved in that project. And it takes a lot of people to make it happen. But I got a lot of big gifts for that project. Made me feel really good that I had a small part in getting that built.
Yeah, you look at all our departments, look at orthopedics, you look at neurosurgery, you look at otolaryngology, ophthalmology, what Gantz does with the ears. There's just so many specialties. And I think that, being from Oskaloosa and being raised in Iowa, if you have something wrong with you, you come to Iowa, University of Iowa. I think the whole state knows that because of all the specialties and all the trauma they see, all the care that they're right on the front lines. Innovation.
Yeah, when there's a complicated case, it's like Iowa City.
Yeah.
They send them all our way,
right.
Which is great training for our young people, but it's also makes you feel good that we're the go-to for the state of Iowa for healthcare. So
you run into people that obviously want to give back, have had something probably happen in their families or lives or themselves with some type of medical issue or whatever, and they want to give back. I think that's neat because they know it's going to research or wherever they want it to go.
And one thing about my job, I'm VP for Principal Gifts, so it's like I can do any gift for any area. So a lot of people do multiple gifts. They're not just tied to one thing.
Right.
A lot of Hawkeye fans are also Children's Hospital fans,
right.
for example. One thing you mentioned, it struck a chord about being open to people. I've gotten 2 gifts on an airplane from strangers just by striking up a conversation. Recently, one of my funniest stories, I was literally going to vote this fall for the election. I went over to the auditor's office and it was a long line. I'll come back the next day. So I came back, I saw the drive-through voting, which I can't believe you can vote in your car. So I got in the car, went to the place. The gentleman hands me the clipboard and he says, "Tom, how have you been?" He was an academic advisor from like 30 years ago that I remembered. And we started talking. He said, "Hey, would it be possible for you to work with me? I'm thinking of doing something for Iowa." So, he wrote his email down and phone and we got together. He ended up making a gift for a bunch of different things, but it's just being open, being prepared and ready. The funny story in the plane, I had my Iowa gear on and I was in a middle seat, which I was not crazy about. Guy next to me has the Wall Street Journal. He looks up, "Iowa, isn't that where they do club foot?" Yeah, we do. I knew all about Dr. Ponsetti. He flew his kid out and they were from New York, very wealthy family, didn't know him from Adam. They ended up making a gift and they ended up making their own nonprofit called Miracle Feet. Just from that interaction, like for you, it's the same thing. You just run into people and start talking to them.
Ponsetti, wasn't he in his late 80s?
Oh my
early
gosh,
90s?
yeah,
still going.
Well, here's the funny thing: they brought their kid in, and the doc said, "Oh, your kid's feet are perfect. They're great." They started just crying with emotion because here's the godfather of clubfoot research and treatment telling this family, "Your kid's going to be okay."
Think about that cleft palate research in otolaryngology with kids.
Yeah.
And I think some of those guys go to Africa or other
Dr.
countries.
Kennedy, who's now kind of, he's retired from the university, but he's still actively involved. I was just talking about him the other day. Oh, well, that's the other thing. I'm
Yes.
glad you brought that up. I have a lot of gifts where people want to take our work to the world.
Oh, good.
I've got a guy, one of our board members at the foundation. He's supporting projects in Tanzania, in Eswatini. Oh gosh, there's a couple other ones. But we take our doctors, like for example, fistula repair for OB-GYN. These little girls get pregnant, and they shouldn't be pregnant at age 12.
Right.
When they have the baby, they have all sorts of incontinence issues. So some of our OB-GYN doctors are now going over and doing surgical work with our residents, so they learn it too, to help these little girls, because they become outcasts in the villages, and the moms do too, because of this incontinence issue. That's one small example of how we're taking the university to the world.
I want to throw a little thing on the side here. Is you went on a trip here a couple of years ago to Jerusalem, didn't you, with my wife?
Yes, Becky.
Who's another Nebraska native. Tell us about that trip. I mean,
It's a funny story how it started. So Father Jeff Belger, the head of the Newman Center, who I know well,
right.
He called me up and like, hey, we have this trip, and April Rauner, our tour leaders, she had to drop out. And I was, he's going to ask me, is your wife, Joan, available to lead the tour? I'm like, am I chopped liver or what? So he asked Joan to help lead the tour with all these tour people, about 50 of us. And I raised my hands, hey, can I come too? So I went with Joan. We had a bunch of people, not Becky, but a lot of them were very elderly. And they're very curious. They'd stop at every little shop to talk to the vendors. So we had to it was like a camp counselor job. You had to keep them moving. But I feel lucky I went when I did. It was right after COVID. We were quarantined for a day in Tel Aviv. We got out of quarantine, but we saw every iconic site. I'm a Catholic, and to see the Sea of Galilee, the River Jordan, where Christ was crucified, and the walk toward that, it was very meaningful. Just a great trip. I was a social chair, so I was able to rig up some Hawkeye basketball games at night for the whole crew to kind of watch. And my wife was more the organizer. She's an elementary teacher, so she did a great job. But we had a ball. I feel lucky because I'm sure now no one's touring Israel.
That'd be hard right now, wouldn't it, with all that's going on?
But it was fun with Becky and
right.
John Bawadi's spouse was there. Yeah. We just is it Marie?
Anne-Marie.
Or Anne-Marie, yeah, we just had a ball. It was a great trip.
Would you recommend that to everybody?
Yes.
Go to the Holy Name if they can?
Yeah, I'm not I travel so much. I'm on a plane about every other week. So if my vacation isn't taking a trip to anywhere but just hanging out, but I would recommend those kinds of trips for anyone. It's just, and you got to do it while you're still able to do it.
Right.
You know, if you get to be in your 90s, you probably aren't able to travel as much. So I know you and Becky travel a bunch.
Don't forget Ireland in spring.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
So let's get into your family a little bit. Obviously, the best thing that ever happened to you was Joan, right?
Yes,
you met her in Sioux City.
Yeah.
Tell us about your family, your kids, and what they've been involved in.
We have 3 daughters.
Okay.
Katie, Molly, and Lizzie. They're all married now, which is hard to believe.
Right.
Katie was born in Sioux City, and then we moved to Iowa City when she was probably 3. She was a West High kid. Molly, our middle kid, ended up at Regina because all of her cousins, all the LaRues and Yal family members were there, kind of wanted her to come over there. And she went there for high school, went to public school through 8th grade, and then went to high school at Regina, had a ball. Lizzie, my wife said, if she's going to Regina, Lizzie is too. We're not going to go to 2 different places. So they went to Regina. All kids were soccer players. Soccer is our sport for our kids. And I got involved in parent coaching, which didn't always go over well with my kids, but it was just a lot of fun. So we've been a soccer family all the way through. Katie's a teacher. She's taken a time out and watching her 2 little ones. She has 2 grandkids in town, but she taught for 8 years at Minneapolis Elementary. It's kind of like a family business. My wife's a teacher. Both my grandmothers were teachers. Aunt was a teacher. So that's kind of our thing in our family. Then Molly, so Katie's here in town. Molly's in Chicago. She married a Regina kid, Ned Fleming. She ended up there, and she's a dietitian with Rush Hospital. So she works with bariatric patients when the pre and post-op, helping them with their counseling for their diet and all that. She went to Iowa State. Katie ended up at UNI for teaching. And then Lizzie, believe it or not, has a chip off the old block. She does fundraising for Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee.
Oh, really?
And Freighter Hospital. It's very similar to UI Healthcare, but it's private. And she went to Luther College, played soccer there, had a ball, and met her now husband there. He's a music teacher in Milwaukee. So I'm very blessed. I've got
Right.
3 grandkids. Molly has 1, Katie 2. Hopefully Lizzie will have a couple down the line. And so they're all doing well and off the payroll.
Good. So when she was at Luther, did you ever go to Bluffton and canoe?
Yes. Yes.
If you've not been to Decorah, it's
Oh my
it's
gosh.
beautiful.
It's just the nicest little town. We
it
miss
is.
going there. We'd go up there for all the time for soccer games.
Right.
And we'd stay over the weekend with an Airbnb. It was just a great gem of a town. Love it. Very, very beautiful area.
Hotel Winneshiek.
Oh, yeah.
Downtown. It's
You
kinda
got
neat.
it.
So, well, let's give us another story or two before we wrap up here
Sure.
on fundraising or something that's really impacted your life. And
Well, I wrote
you
some
got some
notes
things
down.
down. Good.
Anticipating you might ask that question. Let me just see real quick.
Give
on a
us some
couple
other
of
good ones.
Yeah. Well, let me look here. So I think some of the best gifts for me have been ones where there's a passion for an area of the university and for that person. And it's interesting, Gary. I work with alumni. I work with friends of the university. I work with grateful patients. So it could be really anything. Probably hearkening back to the Children's Hospital. One of my favorite gifts was from an alum in New York. And I don't know how this all came together, but a lot of times you motivate people. You get them excited. We're storytellers. We tell stories. So I had this one woman who's on our board. Yeah, would you like to take a tour of the hospital? This is early hard hat days. The hospital wasn't even a thing yet, but it was being built. She got the hard hat on and the vest and all that stuff and took a tour. And at the end of the day, she got real emotional. She wanted to help kids, but her interest was the library. So if you go to the library on the first floor, you'll see a name on there, a couple. And that was a gift that, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's a 7-figure gift. But she funded the library for kids. That's been one of the most meaningful areas because all these families they're there for weeks on end. What are they going to do all day? And so they end up going down to the library. We have story hour where like anyone, a guest, you could do it. You tell a story and it's all piped into the kids' rooms, the kids that can't come down. They now are in a program, and I have another donor who supports books. They just give the books away now. It's like, you don't even need to bring it back. We'll just give you this book, keep it. So that's another example. Trying to think some of the other ones.
Speaking of libraries, I'll just throw this while you're thinking. I was reading some of Andrew Carnegie. One of the biggest things that he gave back was libraries. He funded, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of libraries across the country. And think about the power of that, of reading, of knowledge. And I never knew that about him. You just think about oil and whatever he did.
Yeah, and you see Carnegie Libraries.
Yeah.
Joan actually now is a librarian. She's an elementary teacher librarian. So she's big into children's literature. I guess one other quick story I would mention is the new North Liberty Hospital, which I saw you out there on the tour.
I've been in there.
Yeah, yeah, you know about it.
Yeah, I do.
You're a customer.
Yeah.
But I had several folks that made significant. I had one family make a $5 million gift to support the project. Big Hawkeye fans. Another family made a $2 million gift to support a conference center. And when we had the open house and we had tours with all these donors and we had ribbon cuttings, it made my day because they got emotional and they were excited about it. And that's what it's all about, finding that connection with what they're most interested in.
I think I saw you at the open house.
Yes.
How many people were there that day?
They had like, I asked because they were anticipating a certain amount. They had over 7,000 people show up.
Absolutely amazing.
And it was all day long.
Right.
They just came through, and I was really surprised but happy that that many people wanted to check it out.
What a great facility. You can just drive right up and walk in. It takes about 30 seconds to get in the door. What a beautiful area.
And I have a family member who's going through it right now with a shoulder replacement surgery. So I'm not doing it myself, but I'm seeing it through one of my close friends and family members.
It's amazing. So let's finish with, I do 3 H's.
Okay.
Hero, hardship, and highlight, however you want to go, what order.
Wow.
Just want you to dig deep and think about who your hero is, highlight of your life, and a hardship of your life.
Wow.
So
I think the hardship would be parents dying young. Dad died at 47, mom at 55. They had issues that caused some things, alcoholism and anorexia. I'll get emotional now.
Yeah.
That was hardship to overcome. And I feel like I've kind of like turned the page with my own kids. so they didn't have to face the hardships I did.
So you spend more time with your kids with that. You hug them more, tell them you love them, things like that.
Exactly.
Right.
And they both live great lives, but they just had some tough situations for themselves. But I got through it and kind of came out the other end, and I think I'm stronger for it. But that was a hardship.
How old were you when your father
My
passed?
dad died when I was in college.
In college.
And my mom died when I was in my 20s.
Hmm.
It's never easy at any age with your parents. You know that.
And you miss them every day, don't you?
Oh, you got it. And you remember them. You know, there's
Yep.
certain things like part of the reason I came in Iowa City is my dad. Kind of full circle. Coming back to the Iowa City area, I'm getting choked up.
Did they help you with faith? Did you learn faith with your mother and father?
Yeah, and I was a Methodist growing up. I wasn't Catholic. My mom was the organist in the church. Dad, we had great relationships. The guy that was our minister retired, came back and did both funerals. Remarkable guy. And so there is a faith element there. And Joan, of course, is an Irish Catholic, McCoy.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of
full-blooded.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And she didn't twist my arm, but it took a while. But I ended up converting to Catholicism and had a great relationship with the Newman Center. I'm on their board. We're St. Thomas More people now. Father Chuck's wonderful.
Yeah.
So then a hero, gosh, wow. I would probably say my dad would be my hero. I mean, my mom's just an incredible person, but my dad and I were very similar, outgoing, life of the party. Everyone kind of gravitated toward him, and just the kind of work he did, the creativity he had, that would probably be my hero.
And what would be a highlight?
Boy.
Highlight.
Whew. I think you've probably heard this from other people you've interviewed, but probably my children are my highlight, and the successes they've had. They just were great growing up, got involved in a lot of activities, music, piano, sports, made a lot of great friends, but they've all become successful. And it's just great to see them thrive.
Great.
They're all married. They're all happy. They're all doing great. So I would say that would be that part of your question.
Isn't it fun to see? It's kind of like if you played sports and then you watch your kids play sports, it's more fun. Just see them out there running around, and you forget about what you did and just enjoying what they're doing and how they're learning. It's great, isn't it?
Oh, it's much more meaningful fun, and it was just a blast with Lizzie. We went to every little podunk town in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. All these D3 like UW, Stevens Point, or La Crosse or whatever. You got to meet all these people out in the road, and but it's much more fun watching your kids play sports or sing, do whatever their strength is, than watching yourself do something when you were younger.
It's the seasons of life. We're on the back nine now, so isn't it kind of fun?
I was called the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Where in the fourth quarter, we don't know. But, well, that's really great. So I just want to tell you, thanks for coming in. Appreciate what you do. To me, when you get out of bed every morning, it's got to be fun. You meet so many neat people. You get to listen to their medical stories, and like in my case, we got to talk about that. And you really never get a chance to hear what people are going through. Nobody ever takes the time to find out, and then to be able to give back and to have such a great place to give back to, the University of Iowa, the foundation, all the research, and then to know these docs and staff and nurses and people are taking care of great people in Iowa. Well, it's amazing.
The last thing I'll mention is I'm lucky enough to get to help staff President Now Wilson, Lynette Marshall, our CEO, and Denise Jamison, our dean. The people we get to meet on the road. I've been to every major city multiple times, but when you have the president along, it's just like, oh my gosh, the president of the university is going to come see me.
Right.
To have the privilege to be able to be a part of that and be in the room with those meetings has been one of the highlights of my life.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on. Thanks for what you do for Iowa.
Thank you, Gary, for having me.
You bet. Good to see you.
Okay.